Smackdown vs Raw 2006. Quite the game that many can enjoy, many wrestling fans can enjoy, but man oh man, where have the times gone by and how much have games evolved from now until then? And honestly, I don't know what to say. Like, there's just so much to be covered between how games have evolved. But right now, we'll just focus on Smackdown vs Raw 2006. And for as much as it is a timeless game that can be enjoyed by many, it's actually a little bit dated too. I'll tell you what I mean by that in a bit. This is the Smackdown vs Raw 2006 review, and we're going to talk about the pros, the cons, and the overall enjoyment of the game. So let's begin with the pros. Alright, the first thing I was able to write down was the great season mode that it had. It was absolutely enjoyable. I mean, the Who Did It storyline with Teddy Long, I mean, who can ever forget about that? Who can ever forget about the voice acting? That was so lovely. Boy, wasn't that something. So, honestly, the season mode, definitely not Here Comes the Pain, definitely not Shut Your Mouth, but it was pretty good. And I think the years after weren't as strong as Smackdown vs. Raw 2006's story mode. Next, we got the fun gameplay. The gameplay is really good, and you know what I have noticed? It's a lot more fast-paced than most of the other games. Then there's the spruced up exhibition features with the title match options, buried alive matches, the casket matches, all of the stuff that you can wish for. It's a shame to think that the games nowadays have failed to make a return on some of these match types. Special referee. Next, there's the advanced entrance feature, which I believe this is the game that brought that to us. Awesome. Alright, not much to say about that, but it's amazing how spoiled we are. And then here's the final thing that made me the most happy, that I am pretty much upset that they have never brought back, and I cannot understand why. GM mode. This game had the debut of GM mode. And GM mode, while at its most elementary and at its most simplistic, it was still a fun game nonetheless, and I've been playing this game, this feature. I still play it. In fact, yesterday I was just playing it. And I finally burned out yesterday. But keep in mind something here. I burned out after at least over a decade worth of playing the same damn feature. And even then, before I made this video, I was just about to play it right now, because I enjoy GM mode. It is a fun game, which brings me to my next pro, and my last pro is the replayability that this game has. I can play this game for ages and not get bored. I can quite literally be on GM mode for hours at a time if I really wanted to. And the only reason I even got just a little bit bored of GM mode is because, well, I don't have an updated roster to work with. I can't keep having Robert Conway and Danny Basham up in a match for multiple times and keep having Triple H as my top star and having Christian fight for the United States title. There's a couple things that limit how long I can play this game for. But if there's anything I know, I always come back to this game and I always enjoy it. I always enjoy this little GM mode. I can never, honestly, ever forget all of the emotions, all of the hard times I spent developing my craft as a general manager, booking all the shows, worrying about finances. It's such a fun strategy game that pretty much should not have ever have been taken out of the WWE game series. And the fact that it was taken out is a crying shame. Because imagine Smackdown vs. Raw 2011 having GM mode. Imagine just what I could do with that roster. Or even in today's rosters. 2K15, 2K17. I would have Kurt Angle versus Seth Rollins right now. Or I can have Sami Zayn be world champion facing off against Christian. That'd be a fun match. Point being, GM mode is like a godsend. It was absolutely a fun game that I'm not the only one clamoring to see come back. But if it ever does come back, I will be playing that game. You know I will. Finn Balor versus Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn versus John Cena. Finn Balor versus John Cena. And even right now with the roster that these WWE games have, granted it might be a little bit thinned out now with WWE's pandemic releases and furloughs. Even then, WWE games nowadays tend to have a knack for having really beefed up rosters these days, where you can get The Rock of 2003 up against Jason Jordan, which is fun, but it's not the same without being a manager and seeing the ratings and fighting against the other brand and having something. That's why I would like to see GM mode come back. These are the pros of Smackdown vs Raw 2006. And this is what made the game so damn good, with even more features that I'm not mentioning right now, with even more reasons to like this game that I'm not mentioning now because I can't think of any right now. But yes, I love this game. I love it, love it, love it. Unfortunately, while playing this game, I've come across a few cons in this game. So let's get into those cons. The first thing I want to talk about is the amount of moves that I'm allowed to use for create a moveset. There's surprisingly a really limited set of moves that I could do. I did not notice this until I had been trying to create most of the WWE roster right now. And this, I don't know if this is a case of WWE simply not having a wide set of moves being displayed at the time. Maybe pro wrestling just wasn't where it was today. And yeah, I'm sure that's true to some degree. But I feel like there was a lot more moves that could have been added to the Smackdown vs Raw 2006 moveset list. You know, is it too much to ask for a different double underhook DDT? If I wanted to give Dean Ambrose a double underhook DDT as a finisher, where it looked more impactful than the only option being the Stevie T, and that's the only DDT that I can see. I even looked for what they did for Mick Foley. He has the same Steven Richards DDT, the Stevie T. So, like I said, I just think it wouldn't be too much to ask to have a more impactful DDT. Let's say we want a running jumping knee, right? We have that Triple H knee, but what about just a regular knee where I'm sure you've seen this, where maybe you might see Kenny Omega hit a V-trigger. Maybe there's something like that could have been added to this game. I don't know. Or one thing else I've noticed is there's that move where the wrestler is running from behind and then jumps on their opponent to the back to throw them away with their knee. You know, something, just a few more moves that might add a little bit more variety to the wrestlers that I could do, just because one thing I've noticed is that there is a little bit of a sameness to the wrestling moves, which kind of sucks. You know, maybe you could have added, I don't know, a few more moves. Maybe Christian's pendulum kick. I don't know if he was doing it at that time, but if I wanted to make a modern Christian, it kind of sucks that I can't add that move. Maybe more spear types. Just all sorts of things. A headlock driver as well. All sorts of things that could have been added into this game that wasn't, unfortunately. And I mean, that's fine. I'm not going to complain too much about it. But still, it does kind of suck. It does kind of bring down the game just a little bit for me. Not a super big deal. Not as much as this next thing that bothers me. The roster depth. Don't get me wrong, Smackdown vs Raw 2006 has a very big roster depth. Okay, I'm not complaining about that, but I am complaining that there are characters that could have been included to beef this game up a lot. Whereas in contrast to the newer games, just take a look at WWE 2K14. You had 30 years of WrestleMania, and you had so many different characters added, so many different characters of different eras. You had The Rock's, John Cena's, Undertaker's, multiple versions of them. You had multiple people. You had Goldberg, you had Brock Lesnar of old, Brock Lesnar of now, JBL. You name it. In Smackdown vs Raw 2006, it wasn't a wide list of legends. You know, and the ones that were there weren't really legends from my time growing up. And that's a little bit of a bias. But, you know, I would expect somewhere along the way you can add a few people that would make this game target towards more demographics of people and would get more people to want to buy this game, I would think. Not only that, you know, everybody would expect Goldberg and Brock Lesnar for me to talk about them, but at the time, I'm excluding them out of the picture because Goldberg and Brock Lesnar weren't on good terms with WWE at the time. So I would exclude them. However, that does not take me away from all of the characters that they could have included that they didn't include. And for whatever reason they did not include, there is no excuse for them to not include. No excuse whatsoever. And here's a list of wrestlers that I would have liked to have seen that they could have added. Brian Kendrick is one. And you know how I know this? Because Brian Kendrick signed in WWE in 2005. In July. So they had plenty of time to add him into the game. Another one is the Road Warriors. You saw Hawk, I believe it was, that came back in 2005. I do apologize because I know that one of them had passed away and God rest her soul. But you see, you had one half of the Road Warriors come back for that short stint with Matt Hardy and Heidenreich. They could have both have been added into this game. I know a lot of people would have liked that. Billy Kidman, he was another name that could have been added to the Cruiserweight division. I would have added to that. You know, and these are three names that would have, you know, beefed up the roster a little bit and would have had more depth to the game. Would have made the game more fun even. Because now you have even more characters to play with. With that being said, here's another name. Eminem. I also feel like there was no excuse for not including Eminem into this game. Eminem had come into WWE early in 2005. Early. And they did not leave until way later. And I'm talking until 2008 later. So they stayed a while. There is no excuse for Smackdown vs Raw 2006 to not include Eminem. Especially when in the beginning, the signature of the game, you see the Smackdown signature and you see Eminem and they're not in the game. That's ridiculous to me. Absolutely ridiculous to me. There was Mark Henry you could have added. Let's get into the alternate attires you could have added. The alternate characters you could have added. Okay, Smackdown vs Raw 2006 saw Hollywood Hulk Hogan. You saw Hulk Hogan from the 80s. And then Hulk Hogan of, I guess, the 2000s. You saw 3 different versions of Hulk Hogan. For crying out loud. Tell me something. Why could you not then add the Hollywood version of The Rock? You added The Rock of 2000s, that's fine. I'm not complaining about that. But if you added The Rock, the Hollywood version of The Rock, you better believe he'd be my top star right now. I'd be playing as him all day, every day. He's literally my favorite incarnation of The Rock. That's one thing. Then there's 2000s Triple H. You could have brought him into it. Maybe had the different theme song as well. I mean, that'd be fun. That's another version we'd like to play as. Thugonomics John Cena. Of course, who wouldn't like to hear the old Word Life theme song play, and then we see Thugonomics John Cena take on new John Cena, I guess. Anything like that. There's a lot of different ideas, and those are just names I was able to come up with off the top of my head. And I don't know what there was going on in Smackdown, in WWE in 2005 that did not allow these characters to be seen in the WWE video games, but that sucks. That really sucks because this is a really good roster. Don't get me wrong, like I said, it's a really good roster, but they're just missing so many pieces. They're missing so many characters. Why is Billy Kidman and Brian Kendrick not in this game? So that sucks. Still, I can't forgive that. I cannot forgive that. Because WWE could have worked something out. Even the Dudley Boys, they were in WWE in 2005. I don't know if at the time of their release, maybe Smackdown Vs Raw had them in the game and then they took them out at a late time because maybe they were on bad terms and they went to TNA at this time. I'm not sure what went on. But it sucks that we can't get the Dudley Boys in this game. But we can get their entrance as a create an entrance option. Which, by the way, I don't understand that. I don't want to create an ugly version of Devon Dudley and an ugly version of Bubba Ray Dudley. I want their characters to already be in the game. It's just not the same when you make a create a wrestler and it looks like shit. It's not the same. It's really not the same. And it kind of sucks that I would have to go to someone like, let's say, Scott J. And shout out to Scott J, by the way. I love your work. I appreciate what you're doing, helping the game get more beefed up. But see, Scott J's version of Smackdown vs. Raw 2006 is what this game should have been. There's no excuse. There is absolutely no excuse. So now let's get into one other thing that really pissed me off. Jake Roberts isn't unlockable unless you had a PSP? How stupid is that? How stupid is that? I am not going to buy, and I'm pretty sure at the time, these things were expensive. But so even back then, I'm not going to buy two versions of the same game just to get one character. That has to be the stupidest thing I have ever heard. Absolutely stupid. Ridiculous. And so, those are the cons of this game. Not everything was bad. Absolutely not. In fact, this was overall a great game. But these things, and in reality, it's just two things that really bother me about this game. But everything else more than made up for this game. Like I said, I bought this game, right? I bought this copy of this game in 2012, and I have not stopped playing it since till now. That's 8 years. And even back when I did have this game, when I was a child, when I bought it back in 2005, or my brother, I should say, you know, we rented the game because Blockbuster was still a thing. You know, it was still a blast of a game. You know, with many reasons to love this game, including GM mode. You know, but the roster depth cannot be forgiven. The creative moveset, yeah, you can kind of forgive that. It's just not a big deal. But everything else, you loved it. GM mode. My thing with GM mode, I loved it. I wish they could have added one little thing at the time, is like a little statistics section where you can see not just the win-loss records of each superstar, but how many times they've held a title, their title loss history, just like in Here Comes the Pain. You know, that would have been cool to see. And unfortunately, you don't really see a statistics section like that in 2007 or 2008, which is, it's not a big deal, but overall, still a really fun game, and I really enjoyed it. The soundtrack, freaking legendary as always. What can I say? It did get old a couple of times, hearing the same Crush, Kill, Destroy song. I'm sorry, but that song has a had an expiration date for me. The Broken, however, oh my god, The Broken by Fireball Ministry, will never not love that. I will never not love that. With that being said, though, overall, really fun game. You know, I would give it an A-. You know, I would give it an A- because it didn't give me a lot of frustrations. There wasn't a lot of problems I had with the game. Just the roster depth I didn't like, and the creative moveset I don't like. And that really only sucks because right now in 2020, playing as the newer wrestlers, having them use, you know, dated moves that they probably don't use today. And I know and I say probably because I don't see a lot of people using these same moves today. But even still, that's not a big issue. It's just things that I think could have been added in, maybe make this game a little bit better. But it's fine. Again, not complaining. Man, I wish there was a way I can add the wrestlers of today onto the game of yesteryear and just play away. But unfortunately, I don't know how to mod, and I don't know how to get it to work on my PlayStation 2. So if somebody can help me out on that and help me out so that I can play modded versions of games onto the PlayStation 2, please let me know. Please let me know. But overall, thank you guys for tuning in. This was my video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I try to make it as enjoyable as I can. And take care.